Hey there, guys. As I discussed in my Dark Visions discussion video with Gert84, you can check that on my channel where we talk all about the current Dark Visions, the problems that went on with it, etc. But in that discussion, we decided that I'm going to go ahead and clear these bosses and post the guides that I have, already created from last week. I never actually ran the bosses, but I made the guides for it. I planned them out. So I'm going to go ahead and run these and post the guides so that hopefully the players can, have a better score, etc. Gumi and Global did address the Dark Visions issue in the news, which, mostly has satisfied the issues I've had. They've, promised to do better, etc. But anyway, in this video, I'm going to be going to the Dark Leviathan fight, and then I'll show Dark Gygus and Dark Iron Giant in a different video. So this boss is an aquatic fight. It's for physical units, weak to thunder and fire. It does magical, dark, and light damage, AoE. It also does blind, sleep, confusion AoE, and AoE mana drains every 4th turn. And then a hybrid fixed single target attack every 5th turn. So this is the party we're going to use. As I discussed in the video, the damage cap is 20.1 billion, which this team does have the potential to hit. This team can hit as high as 22 billion, but that requires a very high variance roll. The minimum variance is about 13 billion on this team. So as you can see, we've got like a range of, plus or minus 9 billion damage. That's a very, very wide variance range, and I need most of the party to roll high in order to damage cap. So because of that, I am probably not going to spend, the whole week rolling variance and trying to damage cap. This team may do it. I will run the fight a few times for the video and hopefully get, a high roll or potentially a good enough perfect roll. But that's going to require a good variance roll, which may or may not happen. So I will run it a few times, and I'm going to show you a decent roll. But I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here, then I'm going to get in. I'm going to show you the clear, then I'm going to pause the video on the kill turn, and then I'll go back and run it a few times and show you, a high roll after a few runs. Anyway, see you in a second for the clear. Alright guys, let's go ahead and do the clear, get up to the kill turn. Now this party is going to be killing on turn 9, which is a pretty slow clear, and that's mostly because of Wilk and Knights of Grandchild. Both of them need a relatively large amount of time to set up and do their optimal damage. So we're going to base form LB of Sylvie. That's going to give us a 100% resist buff, so the light and dark damage doesn't really bother us. We'll have Esther just triple cast Stardust Ray to fill her LB gauge. Wilk is going to use his shifted LB. That's going to stack it up. And then the rest of the party can just guard as we just, wait for a while. So we did AoE 100% resist buffs with Sylvie, so therefore this light and dark damage is not really a problem. So this turn, Wilk, we're going to use Sylvie to do triple. We're going to do... we got to shift first. So we're going to fill the Magnus, or we're going to use the Magnus fill. I've got your back on Wilk to refill his LB gauge and then double Clever. That way Wilk can do Dragon Reincarnation, which is a large attack and magic break, so we take less damage from the boss. Now the rest of the party can just guard. And we're not taking any damage yet, but there's going to be a mana drain on turn 4, as well as a fixed attack on turn 5, and the big breaks from Wilk will help with that. Alright, so this turn, we're going to go back to the base form with Sylvie, and we're going to do some immunity buffs for those status effects. We're going to do Resolve for the mana, we're going to do Defense for the big defense buff, and we're going to do Compassionate Knight to make us status immune. Let's go to the base form with Wilk, where we're going to triple either Crag or Zephyr, depending on the choice of weapon. If you're using Axe, it'll be Crag. If you're using Fist, it'll be Zephyr. That basically just refills his LB gauge. Okay, so turn 4, we're going to go up to the base form with Sylvie. She's already there. And we're going to refresh her base form LB. That's going to put up the resistance buffs again. Knights of Grandchild is now going to stack his shifted LB. We're going to shift Wilk and stack his shifted LB yet again. We're going to use Chizuru, and we're going to do focused body, focused spirit, And then, doesn't really matter what else, Focus Mind is fine. Esther and Roberta can still just guard. We're not ready for them. So this is going to be the Mana Drain turn. Now, we've got, decent mitigations right now, and buffs, etc. So the Mana Drain shouldn't be too big of a deal. There you go. Not much of a problem. So turn 5 is the fixed damage attack. Now, we're guarding with Chizuru, so we're just going to go ahead and guard. We're provoking with Chizuru. So we're just going to guard her to get her to take less damage from the fixed attack. We're going to, again, just refill the LB gauge of Wilk with Crag or Zephyr. Esther is still not ready. We can just guard you. We're going to use the base form LB of Roberta for the LB buff. That's a 300% LB buff for the party. Sylvie can shift here, and we can just do Clever 3 times to refill LB gauge for the party. And then Knights of Grandshell can just do basically whatever you want to not guard him, so we don't lose his stacks. We're just going to use Lion Emblem to Rally and Cry to refill LB gauge, basically. Okay. Here is the single target fixed attack on the Provoker, so 1,000 damage. We're allowed to take up to 5,000, so very, very fine, not a problem. Now Roberta is going to use her base form. Not yet. First thing we're going to do is we're going to shift Wilk, and we're going to put up his either Quake Blade or Hurricane Fist, depending on your choice of weapon. We can just guard Chizuru this turn. We don't really need anything from her, and she's out of mana anyway. Esther, again, can just guard. Sylvie can go back to the base form, where we're going to do Compassionate, Vines, and the Magnus for the 85% general mitigation. So we take less mana drain later. Once again, we can, Knights of Grandshell can just refill LB gauge, and Roberta is going to use Draconic Triune to, again, just refill LB gauge, basically for Wilk. As you can see, that refill a lot of Wilk's LB gauge for us. Okay, some more attacks, whatever. So now Knights of Grandshell can use their Magnus for the Holy Amplify. Let's see, what is Wilk going to do? Wilk is going to Vengeance against the Dreadnought, but not yet. So Chizuru on this turn will Eastern Wind. That's going to apply a Katana in Peril. Esther is going to use her LB to put up the field. Let's see, Roberta is going to shift here. Before we do Roberta, let's go ahead and do Wilk to break the boss with Vengeance. Now Roberta is going to Aquatic Killer, Dragoon's Aim for the jump buff and Spear in Peril, and then Emissary of Demise for the modifier boost. And then Sylvie is going to shift, and in this order, we're going to Clever. Then we're going to use her Thunder Magnus, Lightning, Marion's Blessing, and then we're going to do Bolt Egg Basket. That way, we keep the long duration in view on Roberta after she jumps. Okay, so turn 7 is basically a nothing turn, so whatever. Okay, turn 8, we are going to now use the shifted LB of Sylvie. That's going to put up 400% stat buffs, etc. Chizuru will Tyvis' Spirit, so will Knights of Grandshell. Wilk is going to go to the base form, and we're going to either double Zephyr or Crag, depending on the weapon, and we're also going to do his Magnus for the LB boost. Esther is going to Magnus, Bolting, and then just do True Stormbrand for the big Thunder and Peril on the boss. If the boss is pushed below 50, it's not a big deal. That's totally okay. Okay, we didn't. That's fine. That means the boss is going to mana drain this turn, but it's whatever. So we're going to jump our whatever her name is. There's the mana drain, but the whole party's using LBs anyway, except for Sylvie, and she's got enough mana, so she's fine. So now we're going to shift our Knights of Grandshell and do the shifted LB. This is the kill turn. Esther is going to LB. We're going to shift Wilk. He's now fully stacked up. And we're going to do... at the top left, you can see that we have big Aquatic Killer. We've got 90 Defense Break and a 185 Lightning in Peril. Chizuru is going to shift here and do her shifted LB. And then Sylvie is going to triple Bolting. Now, Sylvie is the only one actually using mana this turn. And if you are having problems with Sylvie being out of mana after the mana drain, you can give her something like Paws of Prosperity or Philosopher's Stone, etc. Or just give her more bulk so she resists the mana drain even more. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and do the damage here, and I'll show you the damage, and then I'm going to pause it and retreat if I didn't do a good roll. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to chain Esther and Wilk first, wait just a moment, then we're going to send in tagging Chizuru with Sylvie using bolting. Sylvie's bolting is going to overlay into all these extreme Nova frames, and then Cog is going to cap, and Roberta is going to drop. So let's go ahead and do a damage and see what kind of damage we deal. So we're going to do this, wait just a moment, do this, drop the jumper, and we're looking for a 120 count chain if everything properly hit. It did. We're hoping for good variance. It can be as low as 13, as high as 22. 17.9, so 18. So yeah, so I'm going to run that a couple more times, and I'd like to get 19 or better. Obviously, a 20 or better would be the goal. But anyway, I'm going to see you in a moment after a couple reruns. So let's go ahead and retreat so we don't make this fight cost any extra energy per attempt, and I will see you in a second. Alright guys, we're going to try this again. And we're going to hope for variance, basically. Alright, I didn't quite see the last hit, but let's hope we get good. 18.1, oh my god. I'm just going to keep it. Like, I ran this fight like 6 times, and I'm I was hoping to get a 20, but I'm not spending all day running this fight. Whatever. 18.1 is fine. So let's go ahead and see who did what. Let me bring up my chart right here. I have damage breakdowns of who potentially can do what. So, out of curiosity, Roberta has a calculated damage between 1.6 to 2.5. She rolled high. Chizuru has a calculated damage between 3.8 to 6.3. She's missing 1.5 billion. Chizuru, shame on you. Let's see. Sylvie has a calculated damage of 0.4 to 0.7. She did 0.59. Close. Knights Granchout have a calculated damage of 1.4 to 2.4. About middle, exactly on average. Wilk has a calculated damage of 2.6 to 5.3. Slightly above average, basically average. And then Esther has a damage of 2.8 to 4.6. She rolled high. So Esther rolled high, Chizuru rolled low, and the others rolled pretty average. Yeah, so, if Chizuru had rolled really high and Esther had rolled, if Wilk had rolled above average, that would have been a damage cap. But again, that would require massive amounts of farming that I'm just not interested in doing. But if it was like a perfect sub bosses on both of them, I'd try a lot harder for a perfect score. But anyway, I'll do the turn chart in the comments and all that, as well as the calculations with my team. But let me go ahead and show you the gear. And by the way, as far as you may have noticed from the earlier turns, I actually changed the party order around a little bit. I was just tweaking it as I was running variants. Also, I changed the turn chart slightly from the turns 1 to 9 that I recorded. The original recording works totally fine. I just made I had a few unnecessary actions in my earlier clear that I just took out to make rerunning it a little bit smoother. So the turn chart is like the condensed version without all that extra stuff we didn't need. Anyway, so base form of Roberta is kind of whatever. Shift form is jump damage versus aquatics. As long as you're not in the negative for light or dark, your resistances don't matter, your bulk doesn't matter. There's the build, jump damage with, Roundworm and Dragoon Helm. Maxed jump, maxed aquatic. Chizuru, base form. Now, she's our provoker with the passive provoke. So I gave her a little bit of bulk. Tyvis' spirit, obviously important. Other than that, shift form, LB damage versus aquatic. Here's the build. We're not negative to light or dark. There's the killers. Decent card. EX3, strong, max damage, or maxed LB, maxed aquatic. Paladin Sylvie, both forms geared. Actually, no, the base form is geared in LB fill. So LB fill gear. Shift form is geared for damage. She's geared for high spirit with killers against aquatic, and I mean she does as much as 725 million. So when you're fighting that high damage cap, every spec helps, and yeah. She did $500 million on the clear. Aquatic 220, and she has the chain cap up and everything. So yeah, there it is. Knight's Grandchild, base form, just, Lion Emblem, Typhus Sphere. Because he's on Fenrir, we gave him some light resist to stay out of the negatives. Shift form is LB damage versus Aquatics. Now, again, he is not a good choice here, technically speaking, because it is not weak to Holy, so he has a massive damage penalty. That being said, he's better than my other options. I calculated Tyvis, I calculated things like Star Player Titus, Lone Lion Squall, etc. All of them, even on element, were dealing less damage than Knights of Grandchild off element because he has killers. He gears for killers very, very easily, and I couldn't gear any of the other guys for killers, and it kind of sucked. So yeah, maxed on everything, and that's why he comes along. And even using the Hyos card was actually worse than his LB for my calculation. So yeah, that's my calculations. Maxed LB and maxed Aquatic. Wilk in the base form, kind of whatever. I actually started off with the Axe, and then I swapped to the Claws because the Axe has higher damage potential, but also lower damage potential because it has a bigger range of variance. The Claws are a more narrow range of variance, so you won't have those really high rolls with the Claw, but you also won't have those really low rolls. And because I didn't really want to sit there and run over and over, I went for like a more steady option as opposed to a RNG option. But if you're chasing a really high roll, then the Axe is the way to go because it gives you a higher ceiling. Anyway, LB damage versus Fish, and there it is. He's maxed on everything. Maxed LB and maxed Aquatic, and he did a lot of damage. And then Esther in the base form, but we only use the base form. Just again, LB damage versus Fish, and there it is. And here is the setup: maxed LB and maxed Aquatic, and that was the whole party. Okay, so I spent like an hour running this fight. Like 6 or 7 runs, or whatever. Still takes about 10 minutes apiece. So I'm taking a break, and I will do the Gygas fight either later or tomorrow. But there it is. Okay, see you in a bit.